Hello YouTube. I just wanted to do a quick little video about the LOMO LCA and why I think it's one of the best little analog cameras for street shooting you can get. And I'll explain why. So I'll just give you a quick rundown of the LOMO LCA if you're not familiar with it. It was made in the USSR, if you can see that on the lens cover. It's a zone focusing auto exposure 35mm camera. It has a very quiet shutter. It's very compact, and I'll show you a comparison with one of my old film SLRs. If you look at that big thing and you look at this in comparison, side by side, way smaller. So that's number one why I like it, because it's such a small camera. You may or may not like LOMO. I suspect you might like LOMO if you search for this video. They do make a lot of cheap plastic cameras with plastic lenses, and you know, a lot of people love them, a lot of people don't like them for that reason. This camera does not have a plastic lens. It has a very good quality glass lens, and this body is actually quite solid. It's not heavy, but it's quite solid, and it doesn't feel flimsy at all. And this is from the 80s, and it's totally still working really well. When you open the lens, boom, like that, it turns on the camera. So that means you can't take any pictures when it's closed, and it means you don't waste film or anything in your bag. It's a true pocket camera for that reason. It has a zone focusing slide on this side, which is in 4 zones from infinity, 3 meters, 1.5 meters, and 0.8 meters, which translates to infinity, 10 feet, 5 feet, and 2.5 feet approximately. When you're using it out for general photography, you're basically only going between the 2 middle zones anyway. And then if you're doing a landscape or whatever, you can put it to infinity. And if you decide to try and get a close-up picture, which is slightly more difficult, you've got to try and guesstimate the distance really well and then put it at the closer setting. The exposure is automatic, like I said, although there's no exposure compensation. So what I do is put my finger half over the light sensor, which is right here on the front where the ISO is set, and that's going to fool the camera into thinking it's darker than it is, and it'll increase the exposure for backlighting situations. The viewfinder is actually pretty good, I think, and nice and clear, and it's got 2 lights inside, one of which will light to show that the battery is working, and then when both lights light, it's because it's gone below the handheld recommended shutter speed, and you're going to get camera shake. And I believe that is 30th of a second because the lens is a 32mm. Now, a lot of people buy these cameras wanting that sort of very soft LOMO effect, where you get a lot of corner softness and vignetting and that kind of thing. This lens doesn't really do that so much. It's a good quality glass lens, and it only really vignettes and looks a little soft at the edges when it's wide open at 2.8, which is obviously going to be under lower light because of the auto exposure. So a lot of people have bought these cameras expecting the LOMO effect, and then they shoot under good light and they don't get it. They get very sharp pictures and they're kind of disappointed. But it just goes to show that this lens is actually a pretty good lens. And the reason why I think this camera is great for street photography in particular is because of the zone focusing and the auto exposure. Like I just said, you put it into the zone that makes sense for what you think your composition is going to be, and you press the button, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. Like I said, with exposure compensation, there's a workaround for that, but other than that, it's a point and shoot, literally. And I've used many cameras over the years to do street photography, digital SLRs, film SLRs, and more recently, my other beautiful, fantastic camera that I love is a Leica M6, and I've done a little bit of general photography and street photography with that. But to be quite honest, this camera does as well as any of them. It really does perform well in a street shooting situation. And then when you're done, you just shove it back in your pocket and you're away. The wrist strap works very well because you can put that around your wrist and then just have the camera by your side. And as long as you've got the correct focus zone, which you can do without even looking at the camera, once you get a little used to it, all you have to do is just pull the camera up, press a button, and you're done. And I don't think auto exposure is going to work any better, to be quite honest. So there you go, the LOMO LCA Street Shooter par excellence. And if you're into film and you're into street shooting, I would give this a chance. I picked this up for 50 bucks Canadian a couple of years ago, and it's one of my favorites. And like I said, I've got some really nice cameras, and this is still one of my favorites. So give it a chance. Okay, thank you.